Welcome in everyone and welcome to the Cup of Tea channel. So we've just had our campfire talk this week on October 10th, in time ready for October 17th, which the season 2, the season of blood, will be released. Additionally, I will drop a link in the description below for the patch notes that have just come out as well for patch 1.2. There is a lot of changes that are going to be happening for the season, but I won't go into detail of every single one because there's a lot of information to go through. So what this video is going to be mainly going about the key points that they discussed over the campfire chats. So we're going to start things off by going over the whole resistance changes. So what they had in base game and season 1, it was what was known as an inverse multiplicative. So if you had 20%, for example, fire resistance, and then you added an additional 20%, you'd think it's 40%, but no, because of diminishing returns, it would actually go down to 36%. This basically meant you could forever keep stacking and stacking and stacking that fire resistance, even though you couldn't get that 100%. It will be a percentage of the remaining amount. In season 2 now, they've changed it where it's going to be more additive. So if you had 20% fire resistance and you add another 20, it's actually going to be 40%. But now they actually added a cap onto it. So even though you can't hit that 100, it's going to be capped off at 70%. But that means you are going to be 70% more resistance to that fire elemental damage. But this can also be increased to a maximum of 85% through your elixirs as well as different effects. Some new endgame bosses coming out that will have specific elemental damages. These resistances are going to be a lot more valuable and you want to be applying them to your build. And they've also changed the way armor works in the game. So in season 1, it was basically you would get resistance to physical and non-physical damage. They've now reverted it to being just physical damage resistances, and then you'll earn your elemental resistances through your gear, paragon tree, as well as certain stats that you stack into, which means sorcerers are actually getting a little bit of a buff from this. So if you're a more martial class like rogue and barbarian, you'll have a more resistance to the physical because you're going to be more close to your opponents, whereas the casters such as sorcerers and that are going to be stacking intelligence, meaning that their elemental resistances will be a lot higher. And speaking of gear, amulets and rings have also had a slight change in terms of what elemental resistances they provide. Beforehand, it would be 2 of the elemental resistances, such as fire and poison. They have now changed it to be all resistances and then 1 additional specific elemental. And to also add, to hit that 70% resistance cap, you don't have to be level 100 to be able to get there. They're expecting you to be around level 80 to get that 70% resistance to most of those elementals. They have also ensured that even if you're not a player that does the whole theory crafting, making sure every stat is in the correct place so you're min-maxing, even if you're just the casual player, you'll still be able to hit a minimum cap, so you're still not getting one-shotted by those mobs. But if you take the time out to stack those resistances correctly, you'll be able to receive the full benefit. And now we're going to move on to our uniques as well as legendaries. So what they have put into the game now is 5 class specific uniques as well as 1 general, and for the legendary aspects there's going to be 5 class specifics and 2 general. And to farm for those uniques, it's going to be a lot more easier and accessible, with one of the features of the season being 5 new endgame bosses to target farm, with the possibility of obtaining uber uniques as well, such as Shaco and the Grandfather. Even though you can obtain uniques and uber uniques throughout the game anyway, this just gives you a better opportunity for those drop chances. They've also increased the item power ranges for sacred and ancestral items as well, increasing at that maximum item level cap to 925. Speaking of uniques, they've also made some changes to the ones that are currently in the game as well to be more beneficial for those specific builds. So what they have done, they have changed certain stats, overrid some certain rules, and increase certain damage ranges. So I've taken a couple of examples here from the campfire chat. For the first example, we have the Fist of Fate, where on one of the stats it was on lucky hit chance it would heal you. It has now been changed to be on lucky hit chance to gain a raw damage percentile buff over 4 seconds. We also have the Grasp of Shadows for the Rogue, where they've changed the damage percentage range of a stat. For the Shadow Client, it is gone from a 21% max all the way up to 52.5% potential max roll. They've also overwritten some slot rules for weapons. So for example, with the Hellhammer, the Barbarian unique, they have actually changed out critical strike damage and replaced it with 4 ranks of upheaval, or 3 to 4 ranks. But they have said that weapon ranks are actually super powerful when it comes to season 2, so we may see some upheaval Barbarian builds in the future. And then finally, they are going to be updating unique effects on certain items as well. So for example, the Ancient's Oath, a Barbarian unique, with Steel Grasp, it still launches the 2 additional chains, and when enemies are hit, instead of applying a slow, it's actually going to give you a damage percentage increase. That pretty much covers the changes that they're going to be applying for uniques that are already in the game. But as mentioned before, they are bringing in a couple of new ones as well. So during the Campfire live stream, they did actually give us a little demonstration of a couple that they're going to be bringing in. So the one that you see on the screen right now is known as Flicker Step. This is a generic unique boot. Each enemy you evade through reduces your active ultimate cooldown by 2 to 4 seconds up to 10 seconds. And don't forget, you can have more than one stack of evade as well. So if there's ways you can reduce it also, this could really bring forth an opportunity to have like a whole ultimate build you could use in Diablo 4. So this next one that you see is a rogue unique chest known as Scoundrel's Levers. While you have unlimited energy from your inner sight, your core skills have a 60 to 80% chance to spawn caltrops, poison trap, or even a death trap. And then this final one is a druid unique amulet known as Dolmen Stone. So whilst casting Boulder whilst Hurricane is active, it will cause the boulders to rotate around you, almost like a hammered in druid, which is pretty cool. And now we're going to go on to the class changes coming into Season 2. So in terms of patch 1.2 and class buffs, changes and that, there is a lot to cover. I'm not going to go through every single one here. If you actually want to read through in detail, like I said, I will drop the patch notes in the description below. But what the team over at Diablo want to be doing, they want to address the issues with each class specifically. So a lot of classes will get their own individual changes. But what this does is make improvements to certain builds that may have not been performing as well in that, but now to give them the opportunity and chance to actually perform up to the levels similar to the high-end builds that we've been using. But also the high-end builds have been tweaked slightly, nerfed in a way. These builds will still be more than viable, so do not worry, but it just allows those other builds to be on a similar level, giving us a bit more variety in the game and an overall balance too. But we're going to use the druid for example of one of the changes that they're going to be making, not just as a damage increase, but also changes to certain skills which will overall increase the damage output that the druid is putting. So with the druid skill Rabies, they've increased the baseline speed of the spread by 50%, whilst its bonus has been reduced from 100 to 50%. It may seem like a buff and nerf, but what it just simply means is that immediate application is going to spread a lot more quickly, meaning more damage is going to be put out. They've also made improvements just in general as well. So with Fortify, the amounts have changed from being based on base life. It is now based upon your maximum life. This means that increasing your maximum life will actually make these effects a lot more stronger. And with these changes, the Diablo team during the Campfire Chat showed us a visual example with the Barbarian using its mighty Warcry. Warcry grants you 15% maximum life as Fortify. And as you can see here, with these changes based upon maximum life, you're almost getting double your fortification from this. So this last little section in terms of class changes is going to be tying into the last section of this video of the Campfire Talks, and it's to do with damage buckets. So what they're going to be doing essentially is going to be nerfing crit strike damage and vulnerability by, instead of being multiplicative and being able to stack together, they are now going to be in their own individual buckets and capped at a certain amount. So with vulnerability, it's going to be capped at 20%, crit damage at 50, as well as overpower, which will be receiving a lot of buffs in itself to become more viable, and that's going to be at a 50% cap as well. And using the diagram that they provided us, if you combined critical strike damage and vulnerable damage together from the 50 to 20%, you'd think it's 70%, but when they did all the maths together, it would actually equate to 80% total rather than the 150 and the 200% applied together. But any additional stats that you stack in terms of vulnerable and crit to this multiplicative, it will then actually change over to be additive. So you are still getting some bonuses with it, but it will be a lot more efficient for your builds if you went for other stats. And what this allows is other builds to actually be performing on par, if not even better, than what critical and vulnerable builds have been performing so far in the previous season. And the reason why they want to be capping these multiplicatives as well is because they actually want to find new ways they can apply new multiplicatives, and even the potential for those multiplicatives to synergize with one another to create more new interesting builds. And through many ways as well, such as your Paragon boards with the nodes, as well as new glyphs. In fact, we're getting 2 new glyphs per class as well as itemization. So there's many different ways you can actually come up with new ideas and potential builds. But that pretty much goes over everything that I wanted to cover through the Campfire Chat. There is a lot more information in there, but I thought those were the important points to put across in that. Wanted to make this video short and sweet, just get the useful information that you guys needed to hear. But additionally, I do have a video that I've done earlier on going over the Livestream developer update, and also another video where I've actually done a Vampiric power guide video, which I'm pretty happy with how it turned out to be. So if you want to check those out, please click the link in the description below and give it a thumbs up and a comment as well. And also, we are going to be streaming season 2 over on Twitch, so you can find me over at twitch.tv/Cuppa__T. And obviously don't forget to like and comment on this video right here, and also subscribe to the channel as well for more Diablo 4 news. But until then, chat, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, goblins. Peace out.